back for another episode. You've come to love this sign, I hope. Entrepreneurs in Quarantine, Dr. Ramy. Can I call you Dr. Ramy?
Sure. Ramy is.
I'll call you Ramy for the purposes of the quarantine show. Sir, thank you for being with us. Tell us who you are and what you do as a profession, sir.
So I'm a medical oncologist. I'm also a trialist with my specialty is in phase 1 and phase 2 clinical trials, so early clinical trials and testing drugs in humans. And I currently work at the MUHC in Montreal.
So you and I go back a little while. I've been following your progress, and we've been working together. And I love your entrepreneurial spirit to the practice of medicine. I think that you have such a great, well-rounded vision of how to marry entrepreneurship and medicine. I really respect that about you. Tell us about what brought you into the news recently. You know, the Globe and Mail's picked you up. You've been in some high-profile newspapers. Tell us how you got there, what you've done to catch the public's eye.
So I think it goes back approximately 5 weeks where I started working on the COVID wards. And there's a lot of questions from patients and family members about any treatments out there. So for people on your show to know, there's no real treatments available against COVID-19. And the only way to achieve a cure or a prevention or even a vaccine, you have to be on some kind of a clinical trial. So I always got the same question. You know, I spoke to my colleagues, they said the same thing. People come and ask us, we don't have the answers, they don't know where to go. And I realized that we have excellent researchers in Canada trying to fight COVID-19, but there's a gap between those researchers and, you know, the Canadian public. And the initiative came as sort of a bridge or a mesh to bridge those two. And so we created covidtrials.ca. In French, it's essaycovid.ca. And the purpose is to raise public awareness on the importance of clinical trials in general and that we need them. We need every single Canadian out there, irrespective of their COVID-19 status, to help be part in clinical trials to get, you know, answers faster.
So let's talk about clinical trials. We all have this vision of a clinical trial. Walk us through what a perfect clinical trial for you is.
So in an ideal world, you come up with an idea, you talk among colleagues in different hospitals, you get the funding. It actually costs a lot of money to do those things, and it's very complicated. You need a big team. And then after you initiate it, each clinical trial takes a certain amount of time, but the biggest rate limiting step is participants. So you need to have a certain population for your trial in order to get the answers that you want. And the moment you recruit all those people, whether they're patients or volunteers, at the end, you collect all this data and you see, well, was it worth it or not, and what were the results and the outcomes? If you want, I can give you examples of COVID-19 trials. So
Please.
Some trials focus on people who got exposed, meaning I know somebody who had COVID-19, I'm worried I will catch it. So we'll give them a medication to prevent them from catching it or becoming worse.
Sure.
People who have COVID-19 sitting at home, there's trials to take medications to prevent them coming in the hospital. People who recovered from COVID-19, this is a very, very unique and very interesting population. We like to collect their blood to collect antibodies in order to form vaccines and treatments. And people are extremely healthy and never had or weren't exposed to COVID-19. Those will be the category to test the vaccines on the moment they get developed. So, as I said, the biggest rate limiting factor is getting the participants in. And the more you have participants, the faster you recruit, the faster the results, and hopefully the faster you get your answer towards a treatment.
So where are we now? Talking about a treatment, a great way to finish that answer. Where are we now? How far, based on all the data that you've extrapolated, how far are we realistically to getting one?
So we are still far. The problem being, if you go on Health Canada or if you go on our website, Health Canada, I found it's not user friendly. That's another reason why we created our site. You have approximately 19 clinical trials that are pan-Canadian at the moment, and there's also trials that are specific to provinces, but none of them finalize the recruitment to get an answer. That's the issue. I do know some of the trials, the recruitment started slowing down. And I think this is where we need public awareness to, they need to finish those trials to get the answers. Um, so the question remains, is there a treatment, is there a prevention, and is there a vaccine? So for the vaccine, you need at least a year. For a treatment or a prevention, hopefully less than that. Those trials aim to finish in the next 6 to 9 months, depending on recruitment.
Amazing. And so what happens to this initiative once we declare it mission accomplished? We put the flag in the earth. COVID is, a distant memory. What happens to all the lessons you've learned in business, in life, in dealing really with the first pandemic of your career? What do we learn from this, and how do we apply it to the future?
That's an excellent question. So as far as I know, and the team that supports us, so for you to know, it's not only me. There's a group of doctors that came up with this initiative all across Canada, and we were supported by a private company. It's the largest health IT company based in Toronto called Think Research. Our mission is to have this as a proof of concept. I think this is the ideal time to raise awareness about clinical trials. And it's the ideal time to see if we can rely on technology to help push clinical trials further. This is a learning point for me also, in order to see if we can fast track, clinical trials like this. In an ideal world, recruitment is hard. And now with everybody, working against COVID-19, we're spread thin as healthcare professionals. So it's even harder to recruit. I think after the COVID-19, if this actually works, we can think bigger. All clinical trials in Canada can be done this way. I do know for a fact that there is no other initiative in the world like this. I know that the US started, thinking about the same lines, but I'm very proud to say that this is the first initiative done this way, and it is pan-Canadian, supported by a lot of hospitals and a lot of hospitals too.
So obviously, COVID-19 is on the tip of everyone's tongue. Whether it's media or a stay-at-home parent or a babysitter. Or a frontline worker, how have you changed what it means to be in a clinical trial? How will you forever contribute to changing either the stigma or the understanding of clinical trials?
So I'll tell you from a doctor's perspective and also from a participant's perspective. I think from a doctor's perspective, COVID-19 really changed the way we think. I have never seen this amount of collaboration between hospitals and physicians and researchers. This is very new to us, where we don't compete anymore. We all want the same objective, so we're all willing to join forces just to achieve that mission. Plus the speed in research. I have never seen that too. Where clinical trials usually take 6 to 9 months just baking the idea and thinking about it. Now it's less than 6 to 8 weeks, and you have a clinical trial up and running all across the nation. I think the positive of COVID-19 is it showed us that we can actually unite and collaborate much faster than how we used to be. From a participant perspective, I think we appreciate more, and I hope people on your show and people who actually watch this, they do appreciate that the power that they have in their hands. It doesn't mean if you do not have COVID-19, you cannot go on the site and register. You are perfect for the vaccine, so you can also play a role on that matter. I hope people will learn from this experience and understanding the importance of volunteering to clinical trials to achieve something that everybody wants, which is finishing with this pandemic as fast as possible and going back to normal life.
I love it. And Doctor, tell us one thing that you've seen. You're on the front lines. You're not just a spokesperson for clinical trials. You're not just an entrepreneur. You're somebody who's actually on the front lines helping patients. Tell us from your perspective, what you've seen that has made you either emotional or that has made you feel empowered based on what you've seen in human nature, medicine, and all this interplay of what you're going through.
So I always give the same example. So I'm still a junior physician. I'm still in my early years. Still a long way to go, I hope. When you think of becoming a doctor or a nurse or a researcher, you always take in the back of your hand that there's always treatments available for whatever disease that you have. I think what we're struggling with is we have a very aggressive virus, and we have no tools in our hands to fight it. And this makes our job very difficult, where you go in the patient's room, sometimes they're very young, and you literally have nothing in your hands to provide them in order to make them feel better. And you just, finger crossing, well, let's hope it's going to be better. This is why the clinical trials are there, because, we become a little bit more optimistic that finally we have something in our hands at least to try. So this is something that I don't think a lot of people experienced. It is something it's very difficult to process. And, in these type of situations, all you have to do is hope that there's, a trial out there that can actually work. Again, we go back to the same issue. We need the trials to achieve that. And I think we will feel more comfortable also as healthcare professionals, knowing that there's a treatment that we're at least trying on them. I can tell you the virus is an aggressive one. It takes its toll. You know the numbers, you know how fast it goes. But yeah, I think time will tell.
That's a great way to go full circle based on, what we need to actually give you the tools to empower the people that are suffering the most.
By the way, our logo is a circle, and we do say complete the circle by joining it. Oh, it works.
I love it. You know what, Doctor, tell us, what's the first thing that you're going to do when everything is over and people are allowed to get together? What's the first thing you're going to do when life resumes?
I think inviting my friends, some wine in the backyard. That's going to be a priority. I'm lucky to go to work and interacting with people. I must admit that I have that privilege of doing so. But no, I think family time is important, and having everybody all together is the first thing.
It's a pleasure to hear from you, sir. Still smiling, and you look great. Keep up the amazing work. We're here to support you. I'm going to make sure that everyone knows how to participate and how to get involved and how to reach you specifically. You're very accessible. You're very generous with your time. And thank you for taking time out of your day to speak with us.
I thank you very much for everybody listening. Please join, participate, covidtrials.ca or essaycovid.ca. We really need the help, and I do appreciate hosting me today.
Merci, docteur. À très bientôt.
Merci. Thanks.